Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is another episode of uh, Bitcoin in Real Life. I had a comment here by someone named Hey There. And it says, Hi, James. I love your Bitcoin shows. I watch most every episode. I was wondering if in your next video you could elaborate more on the streets, Main Street, Wall Street concept you mentioned. Quite a okay, and then that's one of the comments, and that's all it says there. And then he also says, also, I guess it didn't leave enough room or something happened. Also, while I enjoy the new format, I really miss the in-depth chart analysis. You are you sure getting rid of them is the right move? All right, so let me go back to the first part of the question and elaborate more on the streets, Main Street, Wall Street concept you mentioned. Quite, I don't know, he never finishes the sentence there. As far as real life Bitcoin use, Main Street, Wall Street, there's always been, in my opinion, a disconnection between financial markets and finance, used in what I call Main Street or regular everyday usage that users are using money for. In this case, it'd be specifically Bitcoin as a payment or a payment rail. Bitcoin has really, really practical, very useful use cases from what I can tell. Especially being a user, which allows me to operate outside of regulation. So when it comes to Main Street use of Bitcoin, it is literally outside the realm of regulation. It is when you get to Main Street, when you get to the streets, I would call it, the real streets, the use of Bitcoin and how it's used. It is there. The peer-to-peer market really comes alive. It really becomes very vibrant in its use. And if you can properly recognize and understand, how those bitcoins are used in a way to facilitate commerce, you know, you're seeing the Bitcoin economy really be created. As far as Wall Street, as in financial markets, like you see in New York, where you're seeing, Bitcoin being traded, Bitcoin being, invested, financed. Some way you could say being almost becoming a derivative of some kind. It becomes more like a gambling casino. You're just putting a bet on a price going up or down. You know, you do a lot of technical analysis, chart analysis, fundamentals, all that stuff. They have some uses because it's a way of looking at the exchanges and coming up with a price to pay for Bitcoin and to sell Bitcoin, and how much does it cost to use Bitcoin. So there's something there, but at the same time, in my opinion, anything that Wall Street does not contribute in any meaningful way to a real economy, because all they do is try to create money. and they're just adding into the amount of money that's already being flooded into the market. Um, it doesn't contribute any meaningful way into the economy whatsoever, or nothing's getting done. Um, a lot of fees are generated, a lot of transactions are done, but nothing has been made. Nothing has been produced. The only thing that's been produced is a number on a computer. So, numbers on a computer doesn't really do much. And the way things are done, it's just being reinvested and then income generated, and there's some use in that income as far as, um, you have to live, you have to pay your bills, you have to consume to live. And so there's some things being done, but really nothing productive is really coming out of that system of in finance. It's just there, and they make their money their way by trading, investing, putting, taking chance, risking their money or other people's money. But as far as Main Street use, there's a major difference. Main Street use has there's no regulation. It is purely peer-to-peer. Wall Street use is heavily regulated. It is, in some ways, controlled. In some ways, controlled. But it is different than other markets where, if you buy a share of Starbucks, you can't take those shares of Starbucks and go into Starbucks and trade them in for some coffee. Whereas, Bitcoin exchanges or these other Bitcoin investment companies that are regulated, whether you put your money in there or you get money out or you get your Bitcoins, you can use both of those in Main Street, in the physical world, and use them. So if you got some Bitcoin and you use a app or a wallet like Purse.io, apparently you get 20% discount on Starbucks. And those are, something is being produced. There's somebody making that coffee who's earning a wage from that, and things are being consumed. Somebody who grew the coffee made money. Starbucks made money, which eventually goes to their shareholders, which may raise the price, which eventually goes to money is increased through their investors. Again, shareholders. People work at Starbucks, they get paid. I mean, there's some real essence of something being done, something being produced, currency moving, so Main Street use, whether it's brick and mortar, a street corner, your home office, it doesn't matter. If it's Main Street use, it is something's being generated, something's being produced, and something's being consumed. That's the Main Street use. Wall Street use is, for me, it's a way to basically, for people who can afford to gamble. It's almost like a casino, and people are just putting their bets in. Some of them are putting money into the companies themselves. But I often feel that there's some disconnection between there. The only thing that connects these two markets is just Bitcoin. When I talk about Bitcoin anyway, as far as Main Street use and Wall Street use, my personal opinion, all that stuff that goes on Wall Street doesn't contribute a damn thing. They're just literally gambling, and the firms that are offering these services, which are regulated, they're just taking a cut off of each transaction. So you're just playing, you're betting against each other, but the house always wins, and that's the kind of scenario that I'm thinking of Wall Street for. And so it doesn't, in my opinion, Wall Street doesn't contribute anything. If anything, there's more risk involved. Um, there's no usage out of it other than the price going up and down. And all they're doing is generating a number on a computer, whether it's more Bitcoin or whether it's more, um, you know, money on a computer somewhere. That's about it. Um, some of that doesn't even translate out into the physical world in its use. Um, so that's my view on those two subjects. Um, although some of the things I do, they mimic Wall Street, um, and I am using some of those same techniques to generate money and Bitcoin for myself. So I do use some of those techniques, but I don't use them in a regulated market. I use it in an unregulated market where there's no regulation. And not that it's bad or good, because there are some things that the government can never be involved in. And they just can't never be involved in this stuff. You know, the same reason, you know, I can make a gun out of my garage. There are just some things the government cannot ever stop or prevent you from doing. And one of those things is Main Street use. You know, because by that time, everyone is a user when you start using it on Main Street or the streets, sort of street, and the real streets, out there in the real world. When you walk outside your door, you know, that situation. Because when you're using Bitcoins in Main Street, you are all users, okay? You become users. And, you know, there's some things the government can never regulate. They can never regulate the users. You can regulate the administrators, you can regulate the exchangers, you can regulate, you know, the banks, you can regulate these exchange companies. They're all fall under some sort of regulation. But when it comes to the user, well, the user has the most power, really. The user has the most flexibility. The user has, you know, tremendous amount of freedom in what they can do versus being an exchanger, an administrator. You know, if you go into a regulated market, it's almost ironic is that the more regulated an industry becomes, the less powerful the user is. And you can kind of see that in Wall Street where, you know, supposedly as a shareholder, you know, you become the owner of this company, this corporation, this public, when they trade publicly. So, you know, you think that as a user of these regulated markets, you would have the most power, but you don't. You actually have less and less power because a lot of that goes to other entities that are supposed to do something, and sometimes they fail to do these things. So those are the two different markets that I would distinguish. When I say Main Street, I'm talking about an unregulated market where regulators cannot interfere, and it's really up to the user. You know, the user negotiates some kind of deal, the user makes a payment or collects a payment. It's all up to the user. So the power in an unregulated market falls on to the user, okay, in this situation where it's done on Main Street. And when you go to Wall Street, the power does not fall onto the user. Although the trade-off is supposedly the user is protected, right? And usually I don't see any real protection other than maybe there's some insurance on your trading account. Maybe you know, there's somebody obviously regulating. But that all depends on how they regulate and how well they regulate and how often they do. And again, when something happens, it's only after the fact that a regulator would come in and do something. It's never before, during, or ahead of time, because nobody knows. No one can see the future. So that's always been the problem. So anyways, there's that comment on there. And then your second comment is, it says here, also, while I enjoy the new format, I really miss the in-depth chart analysis. Are you sure getting rid of them is the right move? And I do because you know the progression of my Bitcoin use has evolved, has really changed. Interacting in the physical world and having Bitcoin being used in real life, it's more complicated. It's really more complicated. It's more dynamic. When you reach out to other people and you're working with people you don't know, you don't know them. You're not lifelong buddies. You're just literally just two separate entities getting together, and you're trying to form this new entity to work under. And it's difficult, it's challenging, it's tough. Even if you're friends for a very long time, it's still challenging because it's always about business. It does help to have a good friendship because all it takes is one misunderstanding and you can get a number of different parties upset. And although we use Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a protocol, it's math, whatever you want to say. The fact that it doesn't change the fact that we're still, people with emotions, and at any point in time we have a different emotional state. And, it becomes a point of he said, she said, or he said, or she said, whatever. Someone said something and another person said something, and it becomes a point where it just gets kind of crazy. And what I've noticed is when people get together and you start an entity and you start forming and doing business, creating money, it does change. It does change. It changes people's perspective. It changes people's attitude. People get worried about money. People don't get worried about money. Things happens. Again, every individual has a different emotional state at any given time. Things happen to people's lives where the situation changes. So it's really more dynamic. It is a lot of time to do this. But at the same time, one of the reasons why I just moved away from chart analysis is because it was just me, myself, and I. And at some point you do, I would say, get lonely. In other words, it's this part of the trading aspect, the chart analysis. I still do those things. Those things I still do. I just don't make a video on them anymore because I think I don't do a video on them anymore because I'm doing other things now. I'm creating a whole different world, a new world, and just doing my chart analysis every day doesn't give me time to go out there and do things. So, anyways, as far as the chart analysis, I'm okay with it. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm just not making any more videos about them because I think there's a lot of information out there already. Other people also do chart analysis, and also, if you watch enough videos, you'll learn a few things. You learn about lines, you learn about moving averages, you learn about Fibonacci lines. You learn all the technical analysis you need to, do some of these things yourself, because I didn't go to, Wall Street University or Finance University. Um, I didn't go to Harvard or Yale to study finance or economics or anything. Um, I just started reading, watching videos and doing some of the analysis myself and see if I'm right or wrong. And of course, if you see my videos, I'm not right all the time. But if I can be right 80% of the time, and my trades work out 80% of the time, and I'm wrong 20%, it just depends on how much I'm wrong, right? Um, Really, in the end, you're 50-50. It's just how much of a trade do you put into that decision. And you know, uh, it is what it is. I think experience will be your greatest teacher in doing technical analysis and trading. So I I've moved on to other things. I don't want to do chart analysis forever. Eventually, I want to do real stuff with this. And so I haven't gotten rid of my um, chart analysis. I'm still doing them. I'm just not making any videos on them because, um, for me, for Bitcoin to become real, you have to start doing real things in your real life with them. If I just did the trading and that's all I did, and I just made money and I just pocket that money, um, nothing will come of it. Right? It'll be just a way for you to earn money. There's nothing productive about it. There's nothing that is being generated or made or contributed to the whole society. Um, so that's the reason why I'm not doing chart analysis anymore, because I think there's a lot of people that do chart analysis. Also, there's a way for you to learn chart analysis, and I do them, so it's not that hard for me, and I still do them. It's just that I just do them for myself now while I'm doing other things. Um, but going out there in the real world and interacting and meeting, uh, whole completely, it takes up more of your physical time, of course, but at the same time, it's more dynamic. It brings all the emotions uh, out of you. It brings happiness and joy, elation, also frustration, sadness, and anger, um, and that's part of being. Well, that's a part of life, and that's why my new episode series, Bitcoin in Real Life. The anger, the suspicion, the distrust, um, the good and the bad, but you also have the happiness, the joy, the feeling of of release. You know, there's a lot of emotions that go on, especially in the beginning. Um, but it's like you're, no matter what people do in life, they're always chasing. Okay, whether you're chasing, some emotion or some feeling, or whatever it may be, whatever you're chasing. And for me, I'm trying to chase something. I'm trying to chase that first experience I've had. Um, when I first started having Bitcoin enter in my life, and how that's changed me. Um, and in some ways, I'm trying to go out there and change other people's lives the way my life was changed, and it's for the better. It's for the greater good. And although I myself and don't experience that, but the fact that I can share that experience with others. I could experience what others experience, and I can somehow receive some of that rush. You know, being around someone who finally, in some ways, I guess, are their lives are changed by the use of Bitcoin. I guess in some ways that's what I'm really chasing. You know, we all chase something, whether you buy tools and work on stuff, or you fix your car, or you're chasing something. You're chasing, you know, you're doing something, keeping your mind busy. You know, some others may have a gambling chase. You know, others have sexual chases, and others are drug chases. But that's not the only thing that people chase after these days. You know, there's some people chase power, some people chase money. I chase Bitcoin. Why? Because I think Bitcoin can get me everything I want in life. Because the way I see it, you know, it doesn't exist physically. If anything, Bitcoin is nothing more than a figment of your imagination. All you have to do is make it real. And if you have a really good imagination, and that's just your imagination, imagine if you just manifested those things into reality. And now you become very powerful in some ways. And in some degree, you also become very dangerous, because if you can imagine something, and whatever you imagine becomes real, just like how, you know, I'm trying to make Bitcoin real. I'm trying to bring it out into physical reality. You know, you can do that with whatever goes on in your mind. You can do that and bring it to reality. That's another thing I'm chasing. And, you know, for me, that's how I see it, and that's how I realize it. And so I'm taking nothing and just creating it out of thin air. Whether it be money, whether it be something physical, whether it be a new world. You're just literally creating it out of thin air. You're able to just take something and, you know, do it. Do it. So that's another thing I'm personally chasing. And of course, what I'm chasing is the new world. And I won't stop until I get there. So anyways, hey there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments. Getting rid of them. I never got rid of my chart analysis. I just stopped making videos about them. I still do them. You know, there's nothing wrong with using chart analysis. Again, a lot of people, you know, if you read enough and you research enough, you can do chart analysis on your own. So anyways, this is the end of this episode. Feel free to like, dislike, leave a comment. Also do a video response. Until next time, stay tuned. Bye.